Asid, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Lagos State Police Command. And I don't know if he is available. Joining us online would have Mr. Mukhtar Badigeshi, who is a sustainable development practitioner. He'll be joining us virtually. Is he online? So I'll actually be moderating the session. And don't forget, if you have questions, please, just write the questions down in the cards that we've Thank you. Yeah. So, Prof, I think I'll start with you. You gave a very brilliant keynote speech and fantastic, no doubt. And just as I said, you made us understand that look, democracy is good. We know what makes democracy work, and as I said, the challenge we have is how to make it work. Now, we look at many successful democracies across the world. They conduct. Oh, sorry. I think I police maybe they cover. Nabila Usman, please, from Radio Now. Nabila Usman.
They assist the
actually, yeah, manager Radio Now. Thank you very much.
Radio Now. Radio Now. Manager. Wow. You know, very small.
So, sir, elections, of course, constant feature of life. In fact, that's one of the most unique things about democracy. And every election cycle, people expect that after the election, things will get better. And somehow, after every election, and after a while, it would appear things remain the same. I mean, from the complaints of the people and all of that. So, people usually dissatisfied with the way things are going. And we've seen that, for instance, especially in Nigeria, after election, voter turnout continues to go down. Some people say it's a measure of the lack of confidence in the process. People say it's just because people that they cannot see the dividends of democracy. So for you now, how should citizens, for instance, assess the health of their democracy and to know whether it's actually working?
Thank you very much. First of all, why do we continuously have problems with voting? It's the same problems. The very simple answer: systemic and structural challenges in those contexts. And so long as these structures remain what they are, the systems remain as they are, no matter who becomes a leader, tomorrow it could put you in one position in Abuja, seeing it will become a problem for you. Because the system protects you, the system or the structure puts you in certain position that you have to do certain things that you do not even desire. So Nigerians will continue to be hopeful because that's the only thing keeping us hope. If you are hopeful, that things will be better. Hopefully one day things will be better.
2023.
And the system is not so strict enough, I think, to be able to check certain behaviors that people bring with them into all public offices. If the system is strict to the extent that anything you do, they will check you, and the people will have a way of also recalling or calling you to order, then certainly this will fall. But today, we have become so pessimistic in several cycles that when people say ABC, anyway, let's wait and see whether it is the real A or the real B. And we have become so desensitized as individuals to the extent as if there's some kind of collective amnesia that anyway, it doesn't matter, just wait for your turn. If it's your turn, you do it the way you want, you go. You also be patient enough to wait for our turn. So people have become patient, not because they want to be patient, but they have to be patient. Where do you run to? So the only thing is for Nigerians to collectively, among themselves, work together and address these issues of identity that I've raised earlier, which people use to weaken our results in most cases. And that can only happen when people are conscientized, people are educated, people are enlightened. But where you have 18.something million unenlightened citizens, did not go to school at all, and they will grow to also vote, how do they even protect their rights? So you can see, it's not a matter of having enough policemen, state policemen, federal policemen, military. No, it's not the issue of just securitizing the system. It is about democratizing the system to the extent that people can participate, feel satisfied, and they can protect, and then be happy.
Now, Prof, when you were speaking in your keynote speech, you said something very important, local governments. And the truth is that most Nigerians do not understand that the government that can actually make a difference in their lives is actually the local government.
Yes.
So, for a woman who's selling akara, for instance, in a street, sorry I used akara.
You like akara now?
White man, momoy, he's saying Zakara.
Akara, moi.
Momoy.
Okay, so just imagine
He said
woman
momoy.
selling akara in a street, a remote area in Ogbomoso. You ask yourself, what has this done? What has that woman? The woman looks at her street. The road on her street is bad. The drainage around her area never been fixed. The local primary school there in bad shape. But the woman doesn't understand who to hold accountable.
Responsible.
The only thing she thinks about is the man who is at the very top. How can we address this? Because essentially
You
that's
see,
the problem.
we have to understand the psychology of our elites in this country, including me. When you talk of elite, there are different categories of elites in every society.
Wow.
Intellectual elite, political elite, military elite, business elites, then bureaucratic elites. How do they think? We have reached a point that our elites are not even protective of their future. And what am I saying? They are so destructive in approach in what they do today, thinking they are building themselves, without knowing that the foundation is getting weaker. And the children of theirs that they think they are promoting by sending them to better schools, who will come back to take over from them. And the larger majority remaining and wallowing in abject poverty and penury, certainly they will overwhelm them. So, good elites, like what you see in the capitalist countries do, is they ensure that they provide some level playing field for the others to also have a sense of belonging and a sense of participation, so that they do not one day wake up and revolt or engender the entire system. Like what we are seeing today. Today, the thieves, the bandits, the kidnappers, anyone of us here can be a victim, whether you are elite or not. If a retired major general, if a former general can be put into a well, just like that, can be attacked on the road and put in a well, and can be kidnapped and so and so and so. It means none of us. It's just a matter of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. So what is the response? Ensure that everybody has a sense of belonging, give people or create opportunities for people so so that they will be busy in their own ways. And the greatest way to do it is to provide quality education. I will continue to say I attended LEA, local government primary school. I attended government secondary school where all my health issues as a child was addressed at dispensary owned by local government. That did not stop me today from making deliveries in Yale, in Harvard, in Cambridge, upon their present papers from this primary LEA. So today, is it possible for the son of a poor man in the village to also go to the same LEA I attended? The LEA is still there. And then today, have the opportunity of going to some of these places for people to respect their opinion. So the woman, her only salvation perhaps lies in her community spirit. And the community spirit itself is suffering. The family system is weakening because of poverty, because of the challenges that I talked about, and the issue of trust. So the community spirit should be what all of us should now work on. Perhaps that could graduate to the community, to state level, federal level, and people become enlightened and empowered.
Okay, I think I'll still take that up with Nabila to see what how journalism can actually help, to address, especially help to channel people's, help people understand who to hold responsible and how they can actually bring about proper governance, especially at the local level. But let me come to you, Mr. Taiwo Badigeshin, who is the Deputy Director and Head of the Department Voter Education, Publicity, and Gender and Civil Society. Voter education is, I don't know what else to say is a problem. But when you look at the participation in elections in this country, whether it's a presidential election, the last presidential election, voter turnout was somewhere around 27%. The just concluded Ekiti State governorship election, voter turnout was somewhere around, well, between 38%. Not good at all. When it comes to local government election, voter turnout is almost zero. Very bad. That's where you expect better participation. So what exactly, what should INEC be doing now? Because there must be certain things you're not doing. So if you're doing voter education and that is not translating to concrete results, we're not seeing that in voter turnout, what then is the problem and how should it be addressed?
Thank you very much. Leaving voter education and awareness at the first step of awareness alone is the greatest mistake we are making in Nigeria. Do you know the end beneficiary of the process are the political class? What contributions have they made to heightening awareness within the people that are coming out to vote for them? Are they going back to these people to keep the promise they have made cost of contesting for the vote?
So you're throwing it at the politicians.
Yeah, on our part, the commission has been doing well. I have to tell you that for free. Now we're having a CPR on the way. Go to virtually all the radio stations, television stations, we have the Lagos state and the other states. We've been there, and all we say is to shout. And by the listeners will say, what is this man shouting about again? I was on one radio station over the weekend, and somebody put up a call to me. Say, you are still shouting now that we are extending this thing. I said, yes, keep shouting till you listen to what we are saying. On our part, we are doing our bit. But the bulk of the challenge we are having is with the political class. The press on their part, they are doing well. They are here, I could see the channels, all of them here, they know the role the commission is playing. The commission is spending that much fighting awareness. But if the political class contribute or partake in the process of getting people educated, getting people enlightened, as the beneficiary of the process, we can get it.
So I think I see your point, because if as a politician, if you do very well and you provide the dividends to your constituents, then obviously at the next election they turn out.
But in reality, the real language political class no, and they are sending to the end of the people with food buying and selling.
And who do we blame for that?
And
No, I'm just asking.
I'm putting it to you as well. You go back to this same because they have rendered the people in poverty as envelopes the people.
But hold on. I have covered elections and I continue to cover elections. I have seen places, I've gone to cover elections in places where, the people who are collecting money to vote are actually not poor people. It's not as if they are poor, but they still get something. For some of them, they just tell you have to give them something before they come out to vote, not because they are poor. So, um, poverty does not clearly explain it. Is there also a problem with the attitude of the people as well?
Most people say that one is part of the reason why. You see, when people are exhausted, they have exhausted their patient like Prof said the other time. They've been promising, and they have been looking up to the promise, and nothing is coming. You have human beings, you get separated at a point, and you feel, let them just. People in the town will say, there is no how we go out to vote. INEC has made up its mind, and that somebody there will still be there. These are the challenges.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Let's move over to Mr. Classic. The police, every elections, you're there. The next governorship election that will come, we're going to deploy about 50,000 policemen and all of that. But there's also a problem. Voters do not have confidence in the police. There's this, that trust deficiency, especially in terms of advancing our democratic process. And most times, people generally believe, well, the opposition also takes advantage of this, that policemen deployed for election duties are usually answerable to the party in power and all of that. So what do you think needs to happen? Okay, help us understand what the true picture is and what needs to happen to get that image of people's head that look, that the police doesn't actually work for them during elections, that works for candidates, so to speak, especially of the ruling party.
Excellent question. Well, happy that the last general elections, the law enforcement agencies were exonerated. Nobody had cause to blame the law enforcement agencies. However, I'll add that, or admit the fact that there's a trust deficit. And in a situation like that, what needs to be done? The public generally is expected to partner with the police. That's why earlier this year, the Nigerian police was under the able leadership of the Inspector General of Police, IGP, Olatunji, Railway District, TSC, DADA, NPN. Carefully with the management team, selected community partnership, building trust. In order to build that trust, what do we do? The first one is radical transparency, whatever we do. And apart from that, embedded transparent accountability into field operations. For instance, the use of body cams can go a long way to rebuild that trust. But we also need to engage the public, and that's presently we're doing through the program of police activities against cultural. We're doing through complex response unit, among other agencies or units under the police force. But narrowing it down to the particular question that you asked, the boils down to citizens' participation and engagement. I have read about it, I've heard it before. People talk about transparency, accountability, freedom of speech, but they rarely mention citizens' participation, which is very, very important. Even in securing the votes of providing security, because in every election, what is expected of law enforcement agencies, especially the police, is the provision of physical security, provision of personal security, security of information, and security of event. And we know too well that we have the responsibility to protect the journalists so that they will protect the truth. And once we're out there in the field, we maintain the neutrality mandate, knowing too well that our allegiance is to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and we walk within, we operate within the ambits of the rule of law. So, in essence, to rebuild that trust, the public partner with the police. It will interest you to know that a simple experiment that was done in Sierra Leone or Ivory Coast during the war, Civil War, has been adopted by the United Nations as a model. What did they do? During the war, they bought GSM line for rural women and people to send out information, to engage the elders, the youths, all stakeholders. We can build that human early warning intelligence system, and that is why we need to partner. I think I can start with it.
Let me just ask a follow-up question. You talked about the use of body cams. Is it something that the management of the police is considering? Because it would help if policemen on election duties, for instance, were able to use body cams during the course of their work, and they're able to record. You know, we provide some layer of transparency and trust in the process, so that in case if there was any incident at all, they'll be able to capture and record. And if you would need that, for instance, as some kind of evidence in a court of law.
Exactly. That is one step forward.
Is it something that the police management is actively considering?
Yes.
To deploy?
Yes, because we have a multi-layered system of discipline. Apart from the camp order adopted, but that one will give you situational accountability report. But we have complaint response unit in which you send lodge any complaint with the Nigerian police force through the email or whatever means, through a phone call. A tracking number will be generated, and you can follow whatever case you put in. That is why I said accountability, radical transparency. Because when we are transparent, public will know that we have got no skeleton in our cupboard. I can attest to the fact that personally, I traveled to River State from Abuja to parade some policemen who were involved in heinous crimes, extortion, armed robbery, and the rest of them, before the eyes of all Nigerians. And that is transparency. That is the best that's ever happened before.
I remember that. Thank you very much. Nabila, whether we like it or not, journalism has a very critical role to play to advance democracy. And there are times when I'm tempted to think that when democracy fails, um, you could put the bulk of the blame not just on the politicians, but you could actually put it on the quality of journalism available in that society. So how can journalism now be deployed to help people understand the process of democracy, how it works, how it should work, and that in our own case, it's not just about looking at the very top, but that it's having to deal with the government that is closest to you. And that is the government that can actually make a direct impact and can actually change your life. Yeah, use the mic, please.
Thank you for the question. I would say, in answering it, I want to fix the framing.
Yeah.
Usually, when we think about journalists, there are two categories of journalists that come to mind very quickly. First is print, then you've got TV. And if I ask the room, likely, if I say, mention 5 names, 5 journalists, you're likely going to tell me some TV journalist or a print journalist. And the reason why this is important is if you think about the statistics in Nigeria, the last most comprehensive report on poverty in the country said 133 million Nigerians were multi-dimensionally poor, right?
Yeah.
That's maybe more than 60% of the population. It's more than 60% of the population. There's also reports that tell us that a significant number of Nigerians who have bank accounts have less than 200,000, or is it 500,000 naira in their accounts at any given point in time. You also consider what our minimum wage is, it's 70,000 naira as of right now. Globally, the benchmark for the poorest of the poor is people who earn $3 a day or less. Something interesting about that number is that every time you say $3 a day or less, you think, I know one of them. But then convert it to naira and then make it monthly, because we earn our salaries on a monthly basis. If you earn anywhere between 135,000 to 150,000 naira a month, globally, you're a poor person. What's interesting is when we discuss it in dollar terms in Nigeria, you don't think about that. Now, people who earn that, who fall within these categories, are people who are they're not likely to pick up your physical newspaper. They're not likely to they might have smartphones, right? But how often do you have data connection, and how often are you going to go to the online?
Well, many of them have access to the radio.
And you make my point, so that's where I'm coming to.
Yeah, okay.
It is that the medium that actually engages with people the most in this country is radio.
Radio, yes.
It is by numbers, but it's also by engagement. So radio is the one medium that when your journalist is in the studio and they open up the phone lines, that citizen is going to call. And there will be an actual conversation between your journalist and your citizen. Doesn't happen with TV, doesn't happen with print, whether digital or hard copy. And so it begs the question of why every time we talk about the media and the responsibility we have to the citizens, why don't we think about radio first? It's the same question that you're asking around governance and why people don't think local government first, right? So my entire premise is if you are going to get a better educated Nigerian, right, the consistency of the media already exists, but you need to focus on radio, understanding that radio is speaking to the larger percentage
So who
of
is
the
not
Nigerian
focusing on
population.
radio now? Why are we not focusing on radio?
As a generality.
No, this is a question.
Yeah.
Look, we know the power of the radio. We know the potency it has and all of that. So who do we blame for not focusing on radio? Who is failing to use that advantage and the power of the radio to inform and educate?
It's a collective thing. And the reason why it's collective is, look, our society is designed in a way where you overlook the underserved, you overlook the marginalized. And genuinely, with my guys at our radio station, one of the things that we have a problem with is you call whoever if you like, top politicians are, or even the middle management guys, whatever, and they don't want to come because it's radio. But you know that if a television station, and I'm not going to call names, right? If they say, come listen to these in 10 minutes, they'll show up. And, like man is a visual being, you like seeing yourselves on TV. Meanwhile, on radio, you're not likely to pay attention to that. And so one of the things that we did at Radio Now, I think about let me use the central bank as an example. Under the last leadership of the bank, there were more Nigerians who found out about the central bank governor than at any point in time. Let's talk in the Fourth Republic, right? And so people were calling the CBN governor's name without knowing what the CBN actually does or who the CBN governor is in terms of what he should do, right? And there's been a lot of like trying to course correct what the perception of the bank as an institution is. But we've done that course correction amongst people like us, right? Who watch TVs, who get our news online and whatnot. But there were regular Nigerians who knew the CBN governor's name and they held on to that as the idea of what a CBN governor should do. One of the things we ended up doing at Radio Now was we had a segment called Radio Now Explains, and it takes the most basic things. So Radio Now will pick the Central Bank of Nigeria and explain what that is. So your basic 5 Ws and the H. And it is understanding that you don't take it for granted that people already know. A lot of people don't know. They don't engage with the system. And so radio is your first step in media and journalism towards actually getting a more educated population.
All right, we're still going to talk about this very briefly. And Professor Patti, I think I will need you here because there's a problem. There's actually a real problem. In the past, in this country, when we had very few radio stations, radio was a powerful tool. Radio provided solid education, whether it's about voter education, the electoral process, and all of that. Radio was one of the most powerful tools used to bring down the military government in this country. Remember radio stations like Kudura Radio, those pirate radio. Radio was very important. So, but why is it that today that we have a multiplicity of radio stations, we're not getting the same results? So the problem is context. The problem. We're going to talk about that, Prof. Just hold on. Let me go to Mr.
So that you can feel free.
Who is of course joining us virtually. And I hope he can hear us. And the question is, how do issues such as poverty, inequality, and access to essential services now shape citizens' perceptions of democracy? And what can actually the government do differently to rebuild that public trust?
Well, thank you. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Well, I think Nigerians are not losing faith in democracy as an idea. I think what they are losing faith is in what it has delivered. You look at what it has delivered in tackling poverty, which is the first goal in the Sustainable Development Goals. You look at what it has done in tackling hunger. You look at what the statistics, what the data says. You look at what it has done in tackling out of school children, education. You look at what it has done in healthcare, well-being. You look at how strong our institutions are. So, and that's why when you ask an average Nigerian on the streets, what they tell you is maybe the system does not matter. Maybe what matters is what it delivers. And so you have Nigerians who keep talking about how military can actually make the lives of an African Nigerian better and how democracy has in one way or the other failed. When you look at the poverty rate, for example, in the country, about 63% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. When you look at access to electricity, about 83 million Nigerians have access to electricity, the highest of any country on earth. When you look at out of school children in the country, you have about 10 to 40 million out of school children, almost the highest also in the world. When you look at access to healthcare facilities, it's also the same. So the question has always been about, well, democracy is good, it's guarantee rule of law, it's guarantee freedom of speech, it's guarantee frequent elections. But what about in area of addressing the basic needs of the people, what people actually care about, their basic needs, their basic necessities, roads, water, electricity, education, standard of living, security, accountability, trust in the system. So these are some of the issues that actually shape what people think about the government. And it's only when we bring it down to the local area where you have about 72% of rural population who are in poverty, and you have about 42 or 45% of urban population who are below poverty line. So the question has always been about trust, not just being made through speech. You don't need trust through speech or statement. You have to show it with action. And over the past 27 years of Nigeria democracy, what we've seen is not exactly what people expected of the system that has been promised to actually lift people from poverty, that actually been promised to make life better, improve standard of living. So Nigerians do not actually are not losing faith in democracy. What they are losing faith in what it has delivered and how it can actually make their life better.
Well, thank you very much. So, Prof, we're going to throw this open now. I think the questions can actually begin to come in. But, Prof, just before we go to the open session now, what is the problem? Why is radio? Why does it seem radio is not delivering?
A number of factors. One is a big capture of the radio itself as an instrument of mass communication. First of all, what is the simple definition of information? For us in mass communication, we define information as uncertainty reduction. Anything that does not reduce uncertainty in your mind becomes misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, or something else. That is why the word information has no opposite. Are the radio stations doing that? One, the elites have captured the radio, and their interest define what the content is. Two, commercialization. It has become pure business and reflects the interest of those who own the stations. Number three, while you have state radio stations, they are unidirectional. Own, sustain, control, and whatever it is by the government that is in power. Perhaps the federal stations are even slightly better compared to what you have in the states. So because of some of these factors, and don't forget today, our radio stations are all mostly on FM, except for those that are also mainstream. No SW transmitter is functioning today in Nigeria. So for those who are in your land, they don't know what is happening in Lagos. For those who are in Lagos, they don't know what is happening except for the few who can use their phones and can stream or whatever. So even the information on the radio stations themselves are most often entertainment than information that can empower. Now, again, even among the radio stations, if you are to sit down and do a critical content analysis, a clinical content analysis, you'll find that a lot of the times, the information is ethnicized, commercialized, politicized, religionized, and regionalized. At the end of the day, depending on where you are, you get the information that you deserve as given to you by the organizations. And again, with changes in technology, radio is also increasingly declining in influence. If I give you money today and tell you go into Alaba market,
buy something,
give me a good, powerful radio, transistor radio. It may take you time. I've done that. Getting good transistor radios today is a challenge. So a lot of us have to listen to radio on our handheld devices, either on radio, garden, or this or on that. And the majority at the lower level may not be that connected. A good radio set today will not cost anything less than 60,000. I challenge anybody to tell me anything different. Yes, radio is the way. In Kano today, we have more than 39 radio stations, FM, in Kano city alone. Go out of Kano 10, 20 kilometers, you can't get any radio signal. I told you that I traveled to Maiduguri, I drove myself. From Kano to Duse, you have portions where there are no Nigerian radio signals. From Duse to Potiskum in Yobe, again, you have empty spaces, no radio signals. Then go to Maiduguri. Outside of Maiduguri, go to the large expanse of Borno State, large portion of northern Borno, no radio Nigerian coverage, no any radio coverage, because most of the radio stations are FM in Maiduguri. And then the villages, they don't even have electricity, talk less of talking about your Android phones. So most of them depend on BBC, international radio stations, radio chat, radio Cameroon. And have a broadcasting map of Nigeria drawn by one of my engineering friends. There are a lot of places where there are no Nigerian radio signals. It's because Lagos and the southwest is a very tiny area of Nigeria. So because of that, radio signals can overcross. But go to the large expanse in the northwest and the south and the northeast. There are a lot of places, no Nigerian radio signals. Because we have failed to even sustain the MW transmitters Nigeria, why you have issue of multiculturality, diversity, space, and a lot of that. You need some of these transmitters to be able to reach. But the evidence is for pure business and in the cities. Look, last week somebody told us, I think Tutu is a prominent person told us, that some people were taken from one of the riverine states to Abuja. There's some huge bridges. And then the man said, I have seen bridges, but there is no water in Abuja. And in my place, we have water, there are no bridges.
Wow.
What is happening in Europe today? In many of our towns, you see them building overhead bridges and no water. And then in the villages where we need to cross rivers and go and get
no bridges.
We can't do bridges. So,
well, thank you very much, bro. Fantastic. Fantastic insight. So we have two questions here. This one is from Ogunshola Alimat, Yaba College of Technology. And her question is directed at Professor Bati. And this is the question. If a country holds free and fair elections, but consistently fails to guarantee security, welfare, accountability, and public trust, can it still be regarded as a true democracy?
Number one, without security, public trust, and accountability, there will be no free elections. We should know that one. Because these are the ingredients that can prepare the system to be able to deliver free and fair elections. And if the system can deliver free and fair election based on these principles, certainly there will be bravery and evidence of democracy. But today, people can push their way into power no matter how, no matter where, which way. You know the principle in politics, and say, let me be declared the winner, then the rest can be settled in court. And it shows you the faith in people that no matter what, let them be the winner. And what happens at the end of the day? Nothing. So I think there's nothing. You cannot blame someone who says, please give me my share before you go to the office. So like once you go,
We know say you
will
okay.
become an issue. So let me have my share in advance. So honestly, my dear Osina, if these ingredients that you have listed are not just there, it will be difficult to even expect a democracy that can deliver the kind of evidence we all expect. But like I said, we must remain hopeful so that we work towards changing some structural and systemic issues. These things, whether it is you or me, they put in Abuja today, some of you will not see me. Yes? You think I will be someone like this? The system will protect me and put me away.
Yes.
So it's not giving, it's not matter of this or that. We have to work and look at the structure and the system which some of us benefit and we don't want to take away. That's the truth. We all know.
Okay. All right. I think this, I will direct this to Nabila and Mr. Anthony. And the question, Now this is what this is from Omo Labake Adebayo, Yaba College of Technology, and she says where there are public concerns that the Oyo State school children abduction may involve insider collaboration or other forms of foul play. How can journalists pursue the truth without spreading misinformation? And what responsibility does the government have to be transparent about its investigation? I don't know that if you understand. Yeah, so let me start with you know, that look, this incident in your state, so where there's suspicion that there was insider involvement, maybe from the community and all of that, and how can journalists, for instance, report it without spreading misinformation, and just to report the truth without spreading misinformation?
Editorial oversight is probably the most important thing here. Yeah, we're in a time where citizen journalists exist, there's a lot of independent journalists, but it's precisely for a situation such as this that you actually have your editorial board, right? A decision cannot be taken independently. And this is where, you sit down, if you have a managing editor, a head of programs, an editor-in-chief, whatever the case, because this is something that borders on public safety and national interest. It needs to be a collective decision as opposed to one journalist stepping out because they insist that they know what the truth is. If you weigh the cost of putting out information that is not true, it's much greater, the damage is much greater than having decided to wait, go through the it's cumbersome for a reason, right, the process. The line of, or if you like, the chain of command or the line of, it's there for a reason, it's to protect you, it's to protect the integrity of the report, it's to protect the national interest as well. So I would say that editorial insight, oversight is your first step. If your editor stands by you, if your media house stands by you, then you know that this is not something that someone just decided to step out and do.
Yeah, Mr. Anthony, maybe the second part of that question, which has to do with what responsibility does the government have to be transparent about its investigation?
Well, I'll say that nobody is above the law because they said, as Tom said, bad news is good news. Because of certain humanity, there are people that will rush to the press. So there's need to indulge in effective and responsible practices. We have verification testing. So if information comes to you, you have to verify that information. Currently, or earlier this year, the Nigerian police was able to set up the media unit at the first headquarters. So if there's any information, it's not to just rush to the press. It is important to verify and clarify. We have a 247 desk, whether it is election period or thereafter, for post-election, for members of the public and members of the press to verify from the verification desk. Because you cannot commit a crime in the process of resolving another crime. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Professor Akinfele.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Prof. Akinfele, Professor of Journalism and Mass Communication. At the moment that I'm approaching of the university. I have some questions for almost everybody there. But in doing so, I want to thank Motorayo and the Center for organizing this particular debate. It's not only timely, topical. In my judgment, it is contemporary. Now, the first question is to our regulator, INEC. I listened to you attentively that you create awareness. I think it's much higher for you to go beyond creation of awareness. You move to the level of creating interest. And if you are aware that it's going to be election, I'm not interested in voting. So it is important for you to get your strategy over and above creation of awareness. People are aware and they just have no interest. You must tell them the dividend of democracy, real dividend of democracy. They are interested, they want to go out and vote. The second thing